Is this the end for the Warriors? What are the Raptors doing so well? Can Golden State get healthy enough to get back in this series? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show / podcast / hangout with Jared Weiss after a game in the finals. It is in the books. The Warriors have been down 2-1 in 3 other series during the entire playoff run they've had over the last 5 years. Jared, what do you make of this 2-1 lead?
This one's a little more horrifying because the Warriors are thin on reinforcements, and we saw what happens when Klay Thompson goes down. So, I mean, I guess they held him out tonight, hoping that means that he's playing the rest of the series. I don't think they're going to win this series if he's not playing the rest of it.
I agree. We already have a couple super chats. We got to just give those a shout out right now. Alexander Varga, thank you so much for being here. And he has a question. Let's just jump right into questions. Why not? Will the refs be good anytime during the series? Well, I tweeted it out saying I couldn't believe I had to write this, but the refs were actually worse in game 3 than they were in game 2. And I had to do a 2-parter with Ronnie yesterday and the day before to go over all the calls. Ronnie has, some a dental emergency, so I don't know if he's available to do another show tomorrow. I hope he is. But Jared, what do you make of the refereeing? Well, this was pretty brutal, wouldn't you say?
I think all my teeth would fall out if I saw the one that really got to me was the call where it was Danny Green runs into Steph Curry, who's defending in the corner, that I think you tweeted out. And Danny Green runs to hand the ball off to Van Fleet or whoever was in the corner. And for some reason, it looked like they called a foul on Green. And it was just so perplexing. I have absolutely no idea why Green, who's running in to hand the ball off, would be the one that would get the call there. It made no sense whatsoever. And then obviously we're going to have to talk about some missed goaltend calls too. Although even if they did miss a bunch of goaltends, Ibaka and Green were just unbelievable playing above the rim tonight.
The whole team was great, I thought, as far as the way they were active and live. It certainly comparison to the Warriors, who just seemed like they just didn't have the same kind of energy. They didn't have the same kind of attack and loose balls. So they certainly didn't deserve to win per se. They couldn't get stops when they needed it. So I don't want to look at the referees and say, gosh, that was it. And by the way, both teams, I think, had equal complaints. I think it may have skewed in favor of the Raptors, believe it or not, in the second half a little bit more. But just blatant stuff. Yeah, the Danny Green one was terrible. I'm sorry, the one where Quinn Cook runs into Lowry was terrible. And it was just didn't even get to understand how the game worked. If I check my notes, I have some more. But let me just go quickly with another super chat real quick from Wardell Stephen Curry II Stan. Coach, can you please address Kawhi's Harden-like manipulation of fouls? Okay, well, since we're already on the subject, let's talk about that for a second because, if you want to compare Kawhi going to the basket versus Steph going to the basket, it's really strange that what's Kawhi doing to get those fouls that Steph isn't doing?
Being bigger and making it more. I mean, I don't know, because there were a lot of plays where Steph would take contact on that first crossover towards the free throw line area, and I thought for sure they would give him the call most of the time, and he wasn't getting it. So that was definitely surprising. I feel like sometimes at a certain point that if you're a one-man offense and you're just driving really hard every single time, at a certain point the refs just aren't going to call it for you. I guess it depends how much you work him over. I mean, James Harden looks like he's going to pull out a chainsaw and start murdering people every time someone breathes on him, and he starts flailing. I mean, Harden flops an insane amount, really kind of a frustrating amount. And I say it as someone who's been a lifelong Harden stan, but that's what he does, and it works. And I don't think Curry complains at that level. I mean, Curry tries to work the refs, but he doesn't. He does a lot of just kind of frustrated and disappointed looks that are, frankly, I think more respectable than what James does. But it doesn't. Well, Harden does it for a reason. The guys in European soccer, they dive for a reason. It's because they need to force the refs to make a call. And I mean, Curry plays honorable as hell. I'll give him credit for that. And what he did tonight was kind of reminiscent of what Draymond did in Game 7 against LeBron when the Cavs beat them. Draymond had that all-time great game, and we all forget about it because they ended up losing. Right. Steph kind of did that tonight, but I guess Steph probably has to sell out on that regard if he really wants to get those calls. I mean, he got 14 free throw attempts. That's the most ever in the playoffs ever. It was the second most in a single game in his career. So
Yeah.
he did get to the line.
Good point. I mean, two things I've noticed were, one, it just feels like Steph going in this game, it was a lot more crowded, which then means harder to see what's going on in there. Versus Kawhi seemed to have like clear lanes to get in there and then can accentuate. And he really makes sure he makes contact with the defender and it makes it obvious. So I think the testament to the fact that they didn't have Clay, they didn't have a lot of shooting, so they were really kind of collapsing into the lane against Steph and just wasn't a lot of room. But the one that ended up like probably ending the game early was, Steph went hard to the basket and got like wrapped around the waist. It was pretty bad, no call, and that was the one you see Steph erupt at when he doesn't normally go that crazy. And then they come right back down and get a Danny Green transition corner three wide open, probably because Steph didn't get back quick enough. And I was also really impressed with the fact that the Raptors were able to attack on those instances. They did not let up and would quickly get right back and get good shots. And then down the stretch in the fourth quarter, the Warriors had no answer. They simply were hitting good, tough shots. There was that one Van Vliet nail that was already the game was probably over, but like just sort of indicative of what was going on offense. I don't know. The Warriors probably should be really concerned at this point that they're going to lose the series, wouldn't you say?
The Warriors are concerned? Yeah, of course. I mean, they're down 2-1. If KD, it's funny, if Clay was out and KD came back, and actually Alexander Varga thinks of the super chat is asking this, and I think it's an interesting question. So if it's just KD and Curry but no Clay, can the Warriors turn the series around and win it? Obviously, if that's for our next game, sure. I mean, they're only down 2-1, but if they were to go down 3-1, that'd be kind of really pushing it there. But do you think if KD comes back next game that Warriors will still turn this around?
Yes, I think Clay can do that. I think Clay's presence tonight would have really helped them and certainly made it even. Because here's the thing: the Raptors could not step on their neck and finish it. The Warriors kept hanging around. And you kind of were wondering they was like 10 points with 4.5 minutes, and like they could do something. And then the Warriors talk about inopportune, unforced turnovers. Draymond had a couple that were he threw a lob that was just ridiculously a bad decision, and then he did another one, and even the one that was goaltended by Ibaka that didn't call. He tried to do some really weird one-handed drive and lost the ball on the way up kind of thing. So Draymond did not play well at all, I thought, offensively, or at least on those, and it was just really killing them in these inopportune moments. Let's take care of a couple other super chats while we're here. Alonzo Lewis wants to tell us in the super chat the refs were phenomenal tonight, and you know what? It's worth a super chat to get in a nice what we call that sarcastic comment in there to get us to read it. And then Wardell Steph Curry Curry the second stand is back saying Game 2 Kawhi closed the space between himself and Clay and initiated contact. Then later extends his arm versus Draymond, but gets the call. Yeah, you know what? And I also lament, I did a video with Ronnie. It was 2 parts. It was late. I was hurrying. I was tired. It was like getting long. I had a couple plays of Kawhi initiating contact and kind of being really provocative. It's the one that like Looney got hurt on because he so crashed into him on purpose. I didn't feel like that was that way tonight. Did you?
No. I felt like it was mostly just kind of pivot moves and Statue of Liberty shots and stuff like that for Kawhi. It didn't seem like he was really forcing contact in the same way. Right. His movement is still off. He still looks like he's kind of slipping around in socks out there.
Okay.
Really strange.
I mean, but speaking of slipping around in socks, we got Boogie Cousins out there who he did not look good. And then defensively, he's really hurting them. Bogut kind of hurt them defensively too. And then Bell probably shouldn't have gotten that second run. I mean, it was 3 times in a row they ran a pick and roll against him. And let me just make it clear, if you're a player out there or you're a coach, teaching sliding on defense is not the worst, like fundamental to kind of get the base. But you have to understand in today's game, and we're certainly seeing at the pro level, you can't expect to slide when a guy is running with the ball at you. You'll never keep up no matter what, even though I would argue that Bell is probably laterally quicker than Lowry is, but he could not get in front of him and he get beat 3 times real easy. So that's a real problem too. That Bell did make a couple of phenomenal blocks and did make up for it a little bit, but they were killing him there. So it's a problem. That's the question. Does Clay kind of clean a lot of this up? Yeah, and the KD certainly gives them the advantage again. But KD is going to be out of shape and out of sync. But even his presence should help them immensely. And I think, by the way, that this means I think he's going to absolutely really make a push to play. And I bet you he's going to show up on the court. KD will.
I'd be shocked if KD doesn't get back by game 5, and I'd be shocked if Clay doesn't play next game. So I guess we have a couple answers from this game, which is that one, they got to max the hell out of Clay this offseason. Mm-hmm. Whatever they do, they got to pay him everything. And so he clearly is, obviously worth it. And yeah, when he's back out, because like there was just so much pressure on Steph to dribble penetrate tonight, and having Clay out there will just make that so much easier, because Toronto did a great job of really trapping the ball. And they put Steph in some really peculiar situations. Now, Golden State, it's so ironic that Golden State, who we kind of laud as like, the advent of the 5-out offense, they are really making a living working out of the dunker spot and playing high-low offense. And that's what's really working for them, especially working the ball through Draymond from the elbow and getting guys sneaking in backdoor from that dunker spot. So,
yeah. But yeah, they're making a living on that because they're beautiful plays. I bet you there was 4 of those, right? 4 scores that way. So it's not like a ton of them. And that was what I was worried about. What I was worried about, especially with in the first half of the way Steph had to go off like he did, what were the shots the other players were going to get? Either if Steph created it for them or they had to create on their own. They're all pretty much like threes. Right, we finally got a little bit going to the basket in the second half better, but that's a worry because those guys aren't really great 3-point shooters anyway, and they're all sort of the catch and shoot, like kick out variety. You're not getting much attacking the basket and collapsing the defense. So that's, at least Clay does give you a little bit more of that too, so that will help. But that's a real concern. I think. What do you think is the most concern for Steve Kerr right now? His offense or his defense?
Transition defense seems to be the biggest, I think, the place where they're giving up the most points that they can control. The Toronto is just doing a really good job of getting the ball to the nail and then kicking out and getting good looks on 3. I mean, Fred had some great shots in transition. I mean, really, they got killed in transition by the Splash family, which is Lowry, Fred VanVleet, and Danny Green. I mean, those guys probably had like the best shooting games of their career all on the same night, which is what really obviously buried Golden State tonight. And I would think I think Danny Green deserves a moment here in the sun on the show, because we were questioning whether he should even be playing in the conference finals. And he has been having like his best shooting run of his entire career now. And he's hitting some unbelievable snipes out there where he's just kind of like falling over and just throwing up these daggers that are hitting bottom of the net. It's been incredible to watch.
Well, okay, let's not get too crazy. He had one like shot fake and then didn't move and then shot it again, the guy in his face at the end of the first half. But I would think, in my mind's eye right now, almost all those were just sort of, catch and shoots that were relatively open.
He had a couple like high movement catch and shoots where he's like falling forward and sniped.
I'm sorry. He had 2 of those. Yes, he definitely did. So yeah. But by the way, and I'm so glad to see him do his only job. Now, when I say only job, I know I'm talking about defense. I'm talking about offense. So don't get all crazy on me on Twitter. Some of the Raptors fans were doing that. But anyway, let's quickly get a couple more super chats because they're coming in here fast and furious. Thank you guys so much for doing this. Alonzo Lewis really wants to make the point that the refs were phenomenal tonight, not one missed call, that he was not being facetious. And okay, I guess I'm going to have to give it to you, Alonzo, if you want to do that to us. Scruler just wants to be in the super chat, so thank you for doing that. And so does Julio Andino Velez. This is fantastic stuff, guys. Really, thank you. Alexander Varga back with Love the Channel GTG. What does GTG mean? Gotta go, I
guess. Is that like old school AIM chat?
Yeah,
BRB, LOL, JK?
Well, TY. And the shiny Haxorus says, no Clay, Lowry has a good game. Not a coincidence. Yeah, but the funny thing is that they actually put Draymond on Lowry a bit, and that was what worked for them really well in Game 2, and it did not work so well. What I was worried about in Game 2, which didn't happen, but happened in Game 3, was Draymond overhelping or doing what he's normally doing, and that left Lowry open for like a catch and shoot 3 that he nailed in the right wing. I can't think of any other ones, but that's certainly like that's what would happen when Draymond's got to guard the point guard.
Yeah, I think there was one where Lowry got kicked ahead in transition and he kind of caught the ball and turned around and just had like a wide open 17-footer and just buried it. I think a big part of it was just Lowry was in a rhythm. I mean, this was one of the best games of his life. And Draymond is going to be sitting off of him. That's kind of part of the game plan design, right? Draymond's not going to be marking him tight, and so which is, I guess, maybe the flaw that they need to switch up next game, because Lowry is clearly in a rhythm, and so they need to account for keeping a man on him tight. And frankly, I mean, just looking at the box score, he was 23 points, 9 dimes, 3 turnovers, shot 8 for 16. I didn't realize he played 43 minutes. Wow, so he played a lot more minutes than I expected. But point being is that I think if he's really on top of his game, then they need to at least have a rotation of guards to try to just get physical with him at the point of attack and not let him get into his comfortable spots. Mm-hmm. And I would rather do that than, the way that they're doing it now.
For sure.
I guess if you have Clay out there, and Clay is such a great defender and is persistent, that probably does fix that situation anyway.
Yep. Lowry definitely is the key here. And I said that in game 2, maybe when you were not with us. He needs to be the guy who gets them their 20 and 9 like he did today. He was fantastic. And he was mixing it up. He was drawing crazy fouls. He was doing everything he needed to do. Let's head over really quickly to the Periscope, because we got some good chats here. Let's run down some stuff. KX999 says, it's all good. The Warriors will win the next 3 games. Don't know about that. Mid-range, Hezzy, Curry needs help. That is true, and he'll get it by next game, at least with the Clay, probably. Ron Koff, Van Vliet with the dagger. Of course, Van Vliet had, that was a huge. I mean, the dagger at that point was late. I think it was I kind of want to say the Danny Green dagger in the right corner, which was like with 6 minutes to go was the dagger to me. Let's see here. Seagull, 45, all bunch of numbers. What's up, Coach, and what's up, Seagull? Let's see here. Ron Koff wants to know if I've lost a little weight. I have. I'm actually dairy, gluten, and what am I? Sugar free. And sugar's a big one. And it's been great. Jared, I do the sugar challenge too.
Okay, I just actually got back from Japan, where I don't think I had any sugar while I was there. So
all right, keep it up.
I guess it's working.
No? Yes. How was the sushi in Japan?
Amazing. It was incredible. I'll save the Japan talk for the end of the pod, just because there's so many people listening.
All right, fair enough.
We'll talk about that later. There's a lot of interesting stuff. We'll have to talk about the Kemba story and all that. But, here's another super chat. Wardle Stephen Curry, the second Stan, says that the Raps needed 17 threes to beat the Hurt Warriors by 14. Now, obviously the Raptors needed to be really good to beat the Warriors. Do you think that the Raptors' key to success is to continue to just hoist up as many threes as they can, or do you just kind of continue to run this pick and roll game with Gasol and try to just get it organically out of that?
I mean, whatever they did today was great. And by the way, most of their threes were really great shots. So the bottom line here is, if they can create shots like that, then take 38 a game. That's fine. I don't think they're going to make 45% of them again, but they'll, if they're all, if I do a breakdown on that one, I don't know. We only have 1 day in between the games. I might try and sneak one in on the rest, whatever. I think we're going to see, and tell me if you agree, of the 38 threes they took, 30 of them were probably open, right? Doesn't that feel that way?
Yeah, it certainly felt that way, especially, I don't know the number, but just the ones in transition felt open almost every single time. And, I kind of mentioned it. I feel like we've buried the lead here, where the pick and roll with Marc Gasol was the best thing that Toronto had going tonight. I mean, that was what really made their offense thrive in the really throughout the third quarter and fourth quarter as well. I mean, just that, Fred and Kyle were both in such a good rhythm tonight. And they were getting good triple penetration. They were kicking out to the weak elbow, and they were getting the shots that way. And then obviously Kawhi would just kind of come in and clean up whenever they needed to. But whether it was Gasol rolling, Ibaka had some really good hard rolls that he only had 6 points, I think, in the game. But he had so many rolls through the paint in the second half that really collapsed the defense and opened up the shots. So he had a lot of, I guess, roll assists, whatever you want to call it. I wish that was a stat.
Yeah,
Second Spectrum, get on that.
Love it.
Well, I'll go on a quick diatribe. I feel like the pick and roll has kind of died out a little bit in prominence, just because the pick and pop is so popular since we've had player tracking data available the last few years. But we're seeing now that, one, there's just more talented bigs, and two, I think teams are trying to do this as a counter to the 5 out, and just defenses being used to the 5 out. We're seeing a lot more pick and roll, it feels like, lately. And so I'm wondering if stuff like that is going to become more prevalent.
Well, I agree. There's no the value of a guy rolling the rim like that and how it sucks people in. It can't be overlooked. And you're right. When they get too much in the rhythm, it's like pick and pop, then all of a sudden you don't get the kind of penetration. It's not a penetration, but it almost is. is, right? When you send a Ibaka or a Siakam or any of those kind of guys to the rim, it almost is like the penetrating with the ball, and then you get a lot of good shots. We got a couple of more super chats. Again, thank you guys so much. What a great night we're having so far. Schruler has a question this time. KD or Clay in the game, even as a decoy, Golden State wins. I would think that if Clay plays, only Clay plays, I feel like the Warriors will win Game 4, right?
Yeah, those guys would be on the floor even if they suck, just because of that. Just having them spot up in the corner and just stand there and not do anything is more important. As long as they can play some defense, they would be out there if they could. Okay. I definitely don't think that's the problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then they would, but I think that Clay tilts the scales to them if he plays Game 4. NMD TV. Can we talk about the horrible calls by the refs? Let's hang on for 1 second for the refs because we already kind of talked a little bit about. We can go into more of a diatribe, but let's get through the other super chats real quick. Rasul Suarez. Do you feel Warriors more like a regular NBA team now without LD and Clay and Iguodala kind of injured? Regular. What do you think, Jared? Regular, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, regular means that not just mortality, but that they have some like apparent weaknesses that they have to cover up, and the other team can game plan against their star and force their star to do what they want. I mean, this kind of reminded me of when Milwaukee was having those games where Giannis would be doing everything and nobody else was coming through. That's really what this felt like. And so, that's really what I think of as a regular NBA team. It's like that one dominant player, and then you're hoping can the others, as people like to say nowadays, which Shaq popularized, and I hate that thing so much, but I'm saying it anyway.
You're not a Lost fan? Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah, I don't think Shaq watches any show of intellectual capacity. But they, this is the perfect example of a game of what a regular NBA team goes through, where your main star is doing everything, and then it's who else can step up around them, and that's never really an issue for the Warriors because they always have another star that can step up and up until this moment.
But it's also difficult.
Counts, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, when you take out a starter for any team, it's just a hard adjustment to do. And Clay certainly is that guy. And also the adjustment you have to make when KD came out before. All those things are really difficult to overcome when you played a whole long season of 6 months with those guys and gotten all grooved. So any team will have that problem, and it's just more pronounced because they are so top heavy there. The Pioneer. Do you think it was a mistake for Clay not to play? You know what? This is the one game they could afford to sacrifice to give Clay a couple extra days of rest, because remember there's only 1 day between this one and the next one. So you got to kind of get it to Game 4. If he aggravated it in Game 3 and he's out for like the rest of the series, that really kills you. So I think this is the one game they could afford to do that, right?
Completely agreed.
All right, Jefferson Perez, huge super chat. Thank you so much. Wow. The Raptors haven't taken advantage attacking Curry on offense. When Clay and if KD return, do you see the Raps attacking Curry more often to wear him down and force him into foul trouble? This is interesting. I saw an interview with Nick Nurse, and maybe it was in the game interview from last game where they asked him, like, you don't seem to be willing to go at Curry. Like, why is that? And he had a great line. He's like, a lot of times when teams try and do that, it ends up being out of their offense. It's not that when they do, they don't have a lot of rhythm doing it. They don't feel comfortable. So they just haven't been targeting. I just don't think they're not going to do what the Rockets would do, which would you try and force a switch of Curry onto Lowry, I guess, and let him go. I also don't think that they feel that comfortable with Lowry attacking one-on-one with Curry anyway, not like Harden against Curry, right?
Yeah, so this has been a weird one because, what Cleveland always did throughout the years was they would always take LeBron at the top of the key, take whoever Steph was guarding, send him up for the ball screen and force a switch. And I feel like that shouldn't be too hard of something for Toronto to do, whether they're doing it with Kawhi or whether they're just doing like a straight on pick and roll with whomever Steph is guarding at that point. But I feel like Kawhi can work that same situation, and maybe they're not doing it with Kawhi because Kawhi is still hobbled, and so they just don't think it's really worth their time, and they don't want to put Kawhi in these high up top isolation situations. And they've been doing a really good job of getting Kawhi the ball in weird spots from like the baseline or wherever, where he can kind of kind of pivot and use the baseline to his advantage, or just dribble from the top of the key to get to his spot on the right elbow. So I mean, their recipe is working right now. I don't think they don't need to get to that. But if they're down and they need kind of the offensive equivalent of going to the box and one, then I think that probably is where they're going to go to.
Right. And I do think that what we've seen enough times consistently is that when Kawhi begins to do his ISOs, even earlier in the game, they'll send a second defender just running at him to get it out of his hands. So I suspect that. And by the way, that's not bad either. So I think that the Raptors would like to see that, independent of whether they need to force Curry on them or not. They're going to kind of do that anyway, so they'll get some advantage that way. It's a risky move. It didn't kill them in game 2 or in game 1 when they were doing it, but it's giving them confidence. It's giving them rhythm. And the Warriors need to be concerned across the board. We got another super chat here. Let's see here. JD Robin 1 says, what do you think about Boogie's mobility around the basket? He could barely get off the ground. Here's the thing. He could barely get off the ground like when he first came back before this injury to his leg anyway. Yeah. So this is not new. He had a spin move. It was nice. He should have finished. And he literally and you could see him be deflated after he got blocked by Gasol or whatever happened there. So it's not good, and he rushed back. I was impressed by his energy on defense the first 2 games, but this game he did not have it, and I thought he really hurt them defensively.
To his credit, he did have a backward shot underneath the rim that he hit. So
how?
Yeah. I don't know, but Boogie's game has always been pretty ground bound. He's the big thing with him is that he's not attacking from the elbows on the perimeter. That's what like makes him so good, is that he can draw to and kick, or he can just kind of terrorize you with that spin move going through the lane. He can't really do any of that, so he's kind of basically Kevon Looney right now, which I guess is fine if he's nailing his defensive rotations and he's playing out of the dunker spot like we were saying. But Iguodala is way more effective at the 5 right now than he is.
Then Boogie?
Yeah, I think so.
Listen, game 2, you couldn't have argued that, but this game, he wasn't getting the same kind of passing. And that's the thing, is his passing does, open up a lot of things. But it just goes to show you when you have, Alfonso McKinney out there versus Clay, it just changes things. Now, let's talk about real quickly, Mirza Kadrich. Thank you so much. He loves the channel, the best overall B-baller. Michael Jordan. Is Kawhi the best overall B-baller? Kawhi could definitely be up there. Yeah, right now on the floor, he's probably the best. He is the best player. And then a Gimpy Lobster, love the vids, and more collabs with Heat Check. For sure, Stefan will come back. I'm sure I'll have to catch him if we can get our time zones aligned. We got to get back to the refereeing, because we know that MMD TV wanted to talk about that in the Super Chat. So we did talk about it a little bit, but is there anything we left out? I'm going to go through my notes. Talk to me. What do you think?
I already covered. I felt Steph probably should have got more fouls on the floor. Yeah, I thought that he kind of got gypped there a little bit. Did we agree that there was 3 goaltends that they missed?
Yeah, I think it was 3. And by the way, Ronnie Nunn just texted me, and it looks like he's up and around and ready and taking notes already. So we're going to have a good show tomorrow. But 3, it was so bad in the beginning. Mark Davis called a backcourt violation when Danny Green throws the ball to Gasol. Yeah. And they reversed it, but what are you doing? Danny Green was a foot, 2 steps behind the half court line before he threw it. You had to be in the front court before you can throw it and have a backcourt violation. So you may remember that one. I wrote down some other ones here. Let's see here.
Well, there was Lowry. Didn't Lowry get the foul call on McKinney when McKinney was kind of leaning down and reaching towards him, and then Lowry just jacked up like a Harden-esque flopper, but McKinney never. It didn't seem like McKinney ever touched him. It was the ref just saw him in the area and called it.
There was some contact, perhaps, and I tweeted it out, but never saw the responses of McKinney's left forearm. It touches him on the right hip leg area, as he was flailing back on a fadeaway. It was all Lowry flopping on that to get that call. That was also, I believe, Mark Davis. But there was at least 2. No, there might have been 3. Really late calls where they obviously waited to see if the shot was going to go in or not and then called it. I think it was 3. And that's horrible. Then there was the makeup call. They called a charge on Kawhi going to the basket that Draymond took, if you remember that one. And it was clearly a makeup call because of I think it was, tell me, was it when they handed off Danny Green?
Yeah, I think that was the one,
The hand up, yeah. So whatever it was, it's like it was just terrible. Now the first half was really as bad as could be. The second half had some problems too. I don't know if I took any notes on those. Let's see here, but yeah. So the refereeing, I mean, it was hard to believe that it was worse in Game 3, but it really kind of felt that way. And I don't know, the players. It's difficult to play in this situation when it takes you out of your game like that. And and certainly, yeah, when you throw all that in there, it definitely felt like the Raptors got a little bit of an advantage, a little bit. Even though, what was the free throw dichotomy?
It was 21 for Toronto, 30 for the Warriors. And
okay, so there you go.
I would chalk that up mostly to Steph's super aggressive play. That's why the Warriors have more. There was a really interesting one, was that when Danny Green had the chase down block, he was in the fourth quarter, right, on Steph, and was that Steph or was that Quinn Cook? Actually,
it was Quinn Cook on the Ibaka. Yeah. Oh no, Danny Green chase down block. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but So Green smacks from behind. Obviously, the smack was clear, but there was a ton of lower body contact and knocked over Cook.
Yeah,
but you would call a foul in that case, right?
I tweeted that one out for sure. I mean, I said great, amazing hustle, great block, but yes, awful lot of contact, and it really wasn't even Green. It was Lowry who hits him almost at the same time as the block is happening. It's probably Quinn Cook. That's why. And I think McKinney got a couple fouls again because he's McKinney. And, you can't really complain necessarily about that, I guess, because that's how it's been since the NBA started. You throw these guys out there. They don't have names. They don't have reputations. And they get those fouls. Or they don't get the call. And it's really too bad. But, again, you hope it doesn't really affect the overall result of the game. The Raptors deserve to win, right? They played better. So, luckily we're not in that situation, but I'm worried, right? We're heading that. We're going to get a call that's going to decide a game, and it's really a problem. We have a couple more super chats. Let's see here. JD Robin 1, again, another super chat. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. If Steph wins a ring this year, where would you rank him in the all-time point guard rankings? Is he better than Stockton, the Big O, Zeke? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's just Magic at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's going to pass Magic unless he gets a few more here. But, Magic was the best player of a generation. Well, Steph is too, I guess, right? But, I put him number 2 behind Magic, probably already at this point.
Yeah, I would put him there for sure. And here's the thing, the Warriors are not getting any younger. They're all 30 plus. So, we're going to start to see the decline at some point. Now, I know Steph's game should allow him to get 3 more years of prime, but 3 awesome years. So I think we're okay for a little while. But, all these guys are getting injured. They're slowly breaking down. This is the thing where we're going to, this is the chance, I feel like, if you're building your team now to try and get the Warriors, because this is, not that this is the last year, but, this is going to be the last year or two where they're going to be and then if Katie leaves, then they're really going to be vulnerable. Russell Suarez, again, thank you so much. Wow. Any comment on the awesome defense Ibaka played in the last minutes? He has to continue playing like that. Yeah, Ibaka, they said on the broadcast, he looked like the player of the old Ibaka. And and he's a little dirty, by the way. You ever really watch Ibaka?
Yep. Yeah, he's a clever guy.
Yeah, but he's down there. I mean, he had one on Quinn Cook where he just shoved him out of the way. The ball went in. That was a Lowry jump shot, so whatever, didn't really matter. But he's constantly just trying to jack people down low under the basket, and they don't call it. But he was really active. And that's why they got him in again. And when he can do that, then they're really tough to beat.
Yeah, and I mean, he had that center field play he had where Draymond lobbed up a cross court alley oop, and he knocked that one out and started the transition defense. Yeah. A couple plays later, he has a kind of a delayed pick and roll, and he's able to kind of get the seal right through the middle of the lane, and they feed him, and he draws that weird. He does kind of what do you call the move when you're under the hoop and you're kind of have the ball over your head and you're just pivoting around waiting to get the look. Whatever, he's just pivoting around, and he gets that weird one that he floats it up and it bounces off the rim. He draws a foul. I mean, that was a huge play. But Golden State didn't really make it hard for him because they were loaded. I guess because Bogut was out there in the fourth quarter, and they always had somebody hiding down in the dunker spot. He was able to basically play center field down the stretch there, and I thought they made it too easy on him.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The defense just wasn't there. They couldn't get pressure. They couldn't get stops. And then you throw in the fact that they really couldn't get scores. There were a number of moments when they cut the leads. It's 8 and 6, I think, and they would miss easy shots. The Warriors. So they really had some chances. And because you know what might happen if they cut that lead to 5 or 4. And by the way, the call that they made on Cook after he handed off and he kind of ran into Lowry, that was a Steph 3 that would have cut it to 4, I believe. And then I think they go back down. I think maybe even Kawhi hits a 3 right away after that. That was crucial. I know it was really kind of earlier on still, but that was crucial. And you have to imagine a couple of those go down and they cut it to 4, cut it to 3. Then we get some sphincteritis from the Raptors. Oh, I haven't used that term in a long time. And you don't know what happens at that point, and that would change the complexion. So it's why this is going to be a 7-game series, I think, no matter what, the way this is going. I mean, we'll see. Eric Pincus, who was on the podcast or I was on his or whatever, he said he thinks the Raptors are going to win 5, and then he quoted that again tonight on Twitter. It's playing that way. We'll see, but I just don't feel it. But what? Okay, Samuels is a beast on Periscope. Wants to know what are your predictions for the series. What's your prediction?
Raps in 7.
Okay, yeah. I mean, listen, the home team wins that. How many? 70% of the time, 80% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, they have control of the series, home court advantage. Kawhi hopefully will get into even more of a rhythm. He's already playing well, but more of a rhythm. But also, I mean, they're getting I don't want to call it shooting luck, but they're getting really good shooting out of their backcourt right now. And Siakam's playing well, and Gasol's everyone's playing well right now. This game was literally every player in their core 6 rotation had a really good game. So that's what it takes for them to beat the Warriors at basically their worst, with Steph doing everything. So obviously, I think that makes me feel that if the Warriors are getting healthy, they're going to be clearly the better team. But I have no expectation for the Warriors to get completely healthy right now. So I'll lean Raptors.
Okay, wow. I still feel like the Warriors are going to win, but I kept saying in 6. But I don't know. It definitely feels like whoever's going to win this is going to be 7. And you know what? I'll just be contrarian. I'll say the Warriors somehow pull it out in some magical, epic fashion of craziness. But
it's kind of ridiculous that it's contrarian to say that the Warriors are going to win the NBA Finals.
Right.
Yeah, they're by far the best team in the NBA. So I think I expect the Warriors to pull it out. It's even if they're not completely healthy. It's like the Raptors are winning the series right now. It's really hard to pick against a team that just went up 2-1 and played a perfect game.
Fair enough. Well, Gigolo Pup is out there moderating the chat, so big shout out to him again. Thank you. He's always out there lurking, ready to help us with all the inappropriate comments, which there aren't too many these days. Thank goodness. I don't know. It's weird. YouTube is much better than Periscope this year, where it used to be the opposite. And what's wrong with Periscope? Why aren't there more people in there? Why aren't they getting all the comments? It's weird. We used to get thousands of people on Periscope. Now they're
we
all
got something like
3,000
people on YouTube right now watching. So shout out to everybody watching.
Yeah, we got some really good stuff. So, all right, we've covered a lot of the stuff. I don't know if there's anything else to go over with this game in terms of immediate reactions. Fred VanVleet, man.
Yeah, I put in my night. When we do these live shows, the software asks us to put in a name. I always try to do something funny. So I put Fred VanVleet Stan in because it's been a wild ride. I mean, it just shows the importance of procreation, obviously, is that this is what allows you to be a great shooter. I mean, Fred had that shot with like a minute and a half left where Kawhi somehow got through the double and then hit him, and he fell over and hit the rainbow. It was insane. He had a shot earlier before that, I think in the fourth quarter, where he took like an 18-footer and the ball went like really, really high on the arc, and it looked like it like hit the ceiling and like went straight down. It was really weird. I don't know if it like hit a bird in the air or something like that, but it's so interesting watching, because Lowry and Fred are two of the biggest rainbow shooters in the NBA. It's just so interesting. Every time they put up a shot, it looks like they're throwing up a prayer, and it goes in so often. It's really surprising.
Yeah, and by the way, McKinney also shoots a really high arcing ball too, and he made one. There's always we talk about this all the time as far as arc and what the optimal arc should be, and there is a limit to how high you want to go before you can keep control. But some of those guys are able to do it, in theory, the higher the arc, the bigger the target is on the way down. If you can control the distance, we got a couple more super chats. Kevin, DG,
quick ref thing, because we're on that shot. Draymond hit Fred when Fred landed. That it's kind of ridiculous that didn't get called. Even though I don't think
when Draymond landed.
Yeah, well,
Draymond
the point is that they hit.
I mean, not
when
Draymond.
Fred hit that.
Oh, yeah,
When
go
Fred
ahead.
hit that rainbow shot, Draymond hit him in the
Oh,
air.
yeah,
Fred might have already.
yeah, but Kawhi traveled before he threw it to him.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everybody. None of these plays should count because there's so many violations on them. But
Right.
the point is, like, they were so obsessed with calling that in the previous series, and then Fred gets hit kind of wide open. Draymond lands on him and knocks him over. And I don't understand how they don't call that, considering how much of an emphasis there was on it.
Yeah.
And we're tired of the airspace calls. And and at least it wasn't like the point of the airspace call is that you don't want guys sticking their feet under where the guy's landing to keep them safe. So landing on top of the guy after the shot and just bumping him isn't really a risk thing. So it's not that big of a deal. But I was just so surprised that didn't get called. But I think that's a great example of the refs not wanting to. For one, the shot went in. So maybe the refs, if it didn't go in, they would have called it.
Yeah,
but if they called it then, Draymond would have lost his mind. Guarantee you Draymond would have been ejected from the game if they called that foul on him.
Maybe, yeah. But, because either Kawhi shifted his feet before the pass or he landed and or both before tossing it to him. And Kawhi, by the way, really gets away with some footwork that is traveling. They don't call it. He had a dunk also where he took like 3 steps after he gathered, and they were really quick, but and it was a dunk, and he was probably dunk anyway. But it's a travel. You got to call that. It's weird. Kevin Yu, super chat. Thank you so much from Canada. We got Canadian super chat here. DG was great versus Curry in the regular season. He's the key. DG, Draymond Green, Danny Green. Wow. Okay. He's the key. I mean, he certainly is the key when he's nailing shots for sure. It opens up things for everybody else. And then J Robin 1 says, who was your favorite player in each finals team? Go.
Oh, that's good. Fred, I guess Fred, and Draymond. Draymond's one of my favorite players ever.
Okay, interesting. Who is my favorite player? I guess I'd have to go with Van Vliet. That's who you chose?
The way that he's been scrapping on defense, he's been making so many nice plays. The shots that he's hitting. I mean, you could say the same thing about Lowry. I loved Siakam, the way that he's been playing this year, and he's still great, but I think he doesn't have that X factor of creativity for me yet that I think I really love, and those guys have that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, the lineups we're talking about, I think the key here for Kerr when he's in a situation like that without Clay and all these people is it's the lineups. You've got to figure out which 5 you can play because the starters really didn't do well. I mean, they got hammered in the beginning of both halves. It struck me as what I thought would work the best would be like Quinn Cook, Alfonso McKinney, and then Draymond, Steph, and I guess you put you go Boogie there, or you take Boogie out and let Draymond play the 5 and put Iggy in instead. I think that might have been their best lineup. They didn't really play it. I don't think they played that one at all with Iggy in there. But that seemed to me like the one thing that they couldn't solve because they just didn't have any other playmakers. So that's the real question of, again, if Clay comes back, it's all moot. No one, he'll be able to figure out those lineup a lot easier. But sure. That's the one thing I felt like Kerr just didn't quite get out of the box well enough tonight.
Yeah, and we saw a question. I had lost the person's name. Sorry. Someone asked, why are they still going to the Gasol pick and roll? Am I losing my mind? Or I thought that was extremely effective. I thought they got so many good 3-point looks out of that. And Gasol was also doing a good job on the short roll of kind of spinning through the lane and getting his hook shot off. So I thought it was extremely effective.
I mean, the pick and roll overall was really effective, and it hurt because I'm thinking more about I'm thinking about Lowry attacking and doing well, but I know I could see it's Bell guarding him, for instance, on those 3, but I can't see if it's Gasol in my mind. But yeah, I mean, the pick and roll overall was killing them. So yeah, if you want to accept that as a fact, then obviously Gasol is setting a ton of those. He does whenever they run him, it's going to be him when he's in almost all the time. So yeah. So that wasn't much of a problem at all. Now, I don't think Gasol did he score let's see. Oh, he had 17 points. Wow, that was a very quiet 17 points from him.
He had some really nice kind of hook shots through the lane in the fourth quarter or third quarter. I can't remember which now. He had that 1-3 there earlier. I mean, and he only played 26 minutes, but I thought it was really good on the short rolls. He had some nice what do you call it? Post up plays. So I thought he's good. I thought they got exactly what they needed out of him.
For sure. Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what they needed for this. Jedi Jazza has another super chat for us. Thank you. Curry with 47, 8, and 7 still gets hated. I don't know.
By who?
I didn't hate him. Maybe he's reading the chats.
We've been extolling him for having an all-time performance in this game. I mean,
Yeah.
I compared it to the Draymond Game 7 in 2016, which I think is one of the best games I've ever seen. So,
Yeah.
yes, Steph was all-time great tonight. So it was a great example of how any of these Warriors players, how great they are, that like when you put them on their own, they'll get you 40 points. And so you see them score 25 all the time and you think they're not scoring as much as they could. Yeah, it's very apparent. Steph could score, he could average 35 a night the way Harden does if he had this comparable usage. He's one of the best scorers ever.
Absolutely. Let's see. Someone wanted to say that Kawhi was fouled.
I'm sorry, just 8 rebounds for the point guard is amazing, especially against the length that Toronto has. That's incredible.
And a couple of them were really tough rebounds. It wasn't just grabbing long rebounds or out of a free throw. He grabbed a couple in there, was mixing it up. I mean, listen, I've extolled Steph's ability and his toughness forever. I was probably the first one to come out with that. So, yeah, he definitely. Andy Corneal wanted to say Kawhi was fouled prior to the travel. Maybe that was so, too. Again, it adds to the whole, ref problem that we thought that tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every fourth quarter play in the NBA playoffs is a litany of violations by both sides that eventually culminates into a basket or a non-basket.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
It's why you call it. It's why it's playoff basketball. They get to play more physical, and that's why I was complaining about. Was it Quinn Cook? I think, or McKinney. I forget who. That had that little ticky-tack reach foul on Lowry because Lowry flopped. But it's like they allow these guys to not even hand check, but just to have a hand on the guy. And then once in a while, they decide they're just, if the guy throws up the shot when someone's even remotely in the area, then they call it then. It just doesn't logically connect. But also, it's like you're officiating a high impact game and a high intensity game, so I get it. There's going to be stuff like that.
Fair enough. There's a question in the chat who wants to know how old Nick Nurse is. He's 51. And so, is that right? 51?
Which blows my mind because he looks like he's like 36.
He certainly looks younger than 51. Yeah, I give him 42. But 42. Yeah, okay. But anyway, it sucks to get old. Nonetheless, well, listen. Speaking of getting old, I think we're going to wrap this chat up. What do you say?
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, great chats across the board. I mean, I didn't really peek over at the Periscope to see just for fun. Rob 870 87 78 asks, do you think that with the Warriors having Cousins, Clay, KD, that people started to underrate Curry? Well, it's basically you just made the point that yes, right. If he had higher usage because of those guys were not on the team, then yeah, people would probably. I think they definitely dismiss him, or not dismiss him, but certainly underrate might be the best word.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people have done a good job of hitting on this in the last year or two. Is that Steph's gravity is just so immense, and he affects the opposing team's game plan so much that even if he's not a two-way player impacting on the level that guys like Kawhi and Giannis do, he still probably is the best player in the NBA just because he impacts teams at the same level that Harden does, and is probably even harder to guard than Harden himself. So, right. Yeah, he's still the best player in the NBA.
For sure. Well, listen, I want to do a shout out to Carlos out there who ran into me on the street today as I was walking around LA. He's a Clippers fan. We discussed where Kawhi might go. He thinks he's going to Clippers. Even if the Raptors win the title, he thinks he'd leave because he won the title and he's conquered and now he can leave. So shout out to him. Shout out to you, Jared, for making it back from Japan and not being jet lagged and can join us. Thank you.
Two things. One, I am so miserably sick right now from jet lag, so that's not true, but had to be here. Two, shout out to Ryo and Meg from Coast to Coast Cafe in Harajuku district of Japan. Two of the biggest NBA fans I've ever met in my life. They run this cafe called the Coast to Coast Cafe, and Kemba Walker and I got to have lunch there together, and the food was amazing. They made us this kind of like a take on like a sausage dog, but it was covered in this melted cheese and these spices. It was unreal. French fries with this like special Japanese type of salt. That was amazing. They were super hospitable. I told them to watch the show, so hopefully they're watching. Although I can't remember what time it is there. I think it's 11 a.m. right now back there. But it was, if you're ever in Tokyo, please go there. It is an amazing NBA experience. It's the only NBA cafe in Japan. I'm going to have a lot more on that in the future, but that was a really cool experience. So,
wow. It's 1:30 there, so they're awake and maybe they're watching.
I got it backwards, yeah. So it's 13 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am gonna miss getting to watch finals games at 9 in the morning. That was a pretty amazing treat.
Wow. Well, welcome back to America, and hope you get adjusted and acclimated back to our time zone. And we'll have plenty. Well, I won't have that much time for Friday. I don't know if I'm going to do a Friday night post game show. I got people coming over to my house to celebrate my sister-in-law's birthday. So we'll see.
Happy birthday, sister-in-law!
Yes, I hope I can actually be able to watch the game in peace without anybody bothering me. But I don't know if I'm able to jump in and get it. We'll see. Let me know in the chat if you want me to really, be a jerk and run out of this party at my house and go do this. So we'll see. Other than that, I think we're good. So thank you so much for doing this. Great live show across the board. Thank you, everybody, for the super chat. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Jared?
I'm back in America. Merc.